Okay. Good evening and welcome everyone. We are delighted that you are with us this evening to learn about 10 additionally outstanding herbs for cold and flu. We have covered some tips and herbs for supporting the immune system and surviving the flu season in the past, but KP Kalsa, our expert herbalist, has 10 new herbs to share with you this evening. So very excited to have him with us and to have you with us. My name is Amy Evans. I am the program coordinator for our integrated healthcare programs, our mental and behavioral health, and our clinical research programs at PCC's Institute for Health Professionals. And KP, you can go ahead and advance the slide if you'd like, please. Uh, I am here this evening with KP Carlson, whom you will meet in a moment. I have a background in community health education and massage therapy and workforce development. So my role really blends a wide variety of my experience, program management, and community outreach as well. So I'm really excited to be able to bring all kinds of cutting edge healthcare trainings to the community far and wide. We tend to have students in this program from across the country and internationally, and are really excited to be able to share some of the program with you this evening, as well as the 10 herbs that KP will cover. I know KP will do a more in-depth introduction in a few minutes, but would you like to say hi this evening, KP?
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Great, thank you so much. KP comes to us with over 50 years of experience, a doctorate in Ayurveda medicine, and all kinds of additional credentials and wealth, absolute wealth of knowledge in herbal medicine. So we're really honored to have him with the program and being able to share so much of his experience and knowledge with you this evening. Just to kind of summarize a little bit, the session is being recorded, as everyone who was on in the very beginning heard. We love being able to see your faces, so thank you to those who are keeping your videos on. We know that that may not be possible for everyone, but certainly invite you to do so, especially during the Q&A session that we will hold at the end. If you're comfortable turning on your video, that would be great. Until the Q&A, please do keep your microphones muted. If you want to capture some questions, please put them in the chat feature. If I can answer them, I will. If not, we'll utilize that as kind of a parking lot to capture any of the questions that you've had, and we'll make sure to review everything at the end. So our schedule for the webinar is you get a few minutes with me, and then KP is going to dive into a larger presentation, including the 10 herbs that we talked about. And then we're going to talk about some ways that you can continue your studies in herbal medicine and what that can look like, and make sure that you've got answers to all the questions that you may have there. Um, with that, I will just give a little bit of placement for this program in the world of Portland Community College. So we have a very unique department at Portland Community College, or PCC, called the Institute for Health Professionals. And we're a very small department, but we have done a lot to create some really cutting edge trainings in functional nutrition, in Ayurveda yoga, the herbal medicine program, interpersonal neurobiology, and many more. These professional development programs and personal development programs have served students for a decade now as part of a larger suite of programs that we offer that includes a lot of entry level. You can see on the screen there, dental assisting, we have phlebotomy, pharmacy technician, medical assisting, medical coding, and then we also have the suite of American Heart Association classes. In addition to that, we have a lot of professional development classes in mental behavioral health, such as motivational interviewing, cultural competency, and mindfulness classes. So please know that by joining this program, you are supported not just by a department that has been committed to excellence in healthcare education for over 30 years, but you are part of a larger college system where there is a lot of additional student support and resources to help you in meeting your career goals and journey. Um, with that, that, I'm going to turn it over to KP to share some about all of the experience that he brings, and then some of these latest and greatest herbs for us to know about.
Thanks, Amy. So, folks, as we're talking about these various herbs for cold and flu, and remember, we talked about a group of them a year ago during flu season. Hopefully, you got some benefit out of those. These are ones that we hadn't covered then. So, new options for your bag of tricks. So, if I'm talking about something and you want to know more detail, just put your question in the chat, and we'll deal with that during the Q&A time. So, I've been a health practitioner for 52 years. I am an Ayurvedic doctor, herbalist. I have a state license as a dietitian, nutritionist, and a long history as a body worker, a massage therapist. Until recently, I was the national president of the American Herbalist Guild, which is the professional association for practicing clinical herbalists. And I was director of the National Ayurvedic Medical Association. I teach at several institutions of higher learning. I teach at Bastyr University in Seattle, which is probably the most well-known natural healing university in North America, in the Ayurvedic Sciences Department, the Botanical Medicine Department, and manage the Ayurveda certificate there. Also teach at a Portland-based school, National University of Natural Medicine, where I teach similar courses. I know many of you probably are from the Portland area because this is Portland Community College after all, although we do have people from all over the world checking in with us for these webinars and attending our classes. I'm a professor of neurology at the Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Science. So I've had a private practice as an herbalist and a nutritionist and sort of general all-around natural healing practitioner for those 40 plus years, but I also have been teaching most of that time. So these days, my practice is relatively small, just so that I can spend a lot more time teaching and writing. For 30 years, I was a senior research scientist and medical formulator for Yogi Tea, brand you probably heard of. Okay, so let's dive into these additional outstanding cold and flu herbs. I want to tell you before we start that herbal medicine is dramatic, dynamic, and effective. I know that there's a lot of discussion out there in the world today about how herbs should be used, which herb you should be using, like that. There's a tremendous amount of misunderstanding about the way these things should be used. And probably most people that are using herbal medicine, they're just stopping by the nutrition section and kind of hopefully grabbing something and having one of those sort of disconnected conversations with the people that are there at the health food store. And often people then don't end up having good success. But with 50 years of experience, I can tell you that there are things that work very, very well for a cold and flu, but you just have to do the right thing. You have to use the proper herb, the proper preparation, the proper dose, and all of that. So let's start talking about the herb kalmeg. That's the Ayurvedic name for it, kalmeg, which means king of the bitters. This is a very bitter herb. It's not the bitterest herb in Ayurveda, but it's certainly close. It's probably number 2, so extremely bitter. Generally speaking, bitter herbs are detoxifying, reduce inflammation, and are often antimicrobial. And it turns out that kalmeg does that. This is an herb that's used in Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine primarily, but it also grows in Europe, and it's getting a lot more attention in the European scientific literature. So the scientific name andrographis, that's usually what it's called in our marketplace in North America today. We use the above ground portion of the plant, the stem and leaf, so anti-inflammatory. And in recent times, a lot of new research has been coming out that tells us that it has a nerve affinity and it's used to treat nerves in general. That's pretty unusual because most nerve herbs are not cold and bitter and detoxifying. They're maybe mildly warming, but at least nutritive and have an affinity for nourishing the herbs. So this is kind of an outlier. It's also thought to cleanse the awareness or enhance cognition and consciousness from the Ayurvedic perspective. So it's been used in both Chinese medicine and Ayurveda for centuries to treat an acute virus. We don't know very well how it works, but it's pretty well supported by a bunch of scientific studies now. So you've got 2,000 plus years of historical use and then excellent scientific validation here just within the last, let's say, decade. So this is definitely an up and comer out there in the real world. So bitter and cooling, I mentioned that. If you get it from a Chinese supplier, it probably will look like this. It is used in Chinese medicine as tea. It's decocted or simmered into tea, but it tastes obviously very, very bitter. It's hard to drink. In Chinese medicine, you are expected to drink it, but most people find it pretty rough to do that. So it's available in all kinds of various other forms, including pills that you can swallow, and then you don't have to deal with the bitter aspect of it. So because it's bitter, it's used as a digestive bitter. Many bitter herbs increase the secretion
Hmm.
of digestive juices in the digestive tract and promote a proper digestion. That's known in all the big three systems, Western Ayurveda and Chinese medicine. It's often made into a tea with ginger, again, to offset that horrible kind of taste. Andrographis is a commercially grown herb in Asia. Here we are in an andrographis field in India. The person in all white is the farmer. This is his field, and he's growing andrographis as a crop to sell into the herbal market in India. The guy in the black pants is a field agent, so he's there to help the farmer uh, grow the andrographis most effectively, how to fertilize it, when to harvest it, all of that. So he comes from the government or from the company that's about to buy it. So it is an herb that's operating on a pretty large scale, very well known, certainly in Ayurveda, easily available to us. Now, it will work as pills or tea, and I mentioned just about the taste. So 1 to 10 grams would be a typical dose. I'm a great fan of incremental dose increase. In other words, don't start out with the highest dose at the top of the bell curve when you first start something. Start with a little bit lower dose. If you wake up in the morning and you have that achy back, kind of spinny head feeling, and you know, uh-oh, the flu is coming, then obviously you have to act fast, and you don't want to wait a couple days to work your dose up. But even so, start with a smaller amount. So 10 grams of andrographis might be a typical dose for acute cold and flu. So you might take, let's say, one gram in pill form with breakfast. Everything is okay. A couple hours later, maybe take 2 grams. Everything is okay. A couple hours later, take maybe 3 grams, and work your way up over the course of the day, ideally with food, divided doses to about 10 grams. And that usually worked very quickly, and people are feeling good by the end of the day. Our standard as practicing herbalists for treating cold and flu is that you should be symptom free within 24 hours. So you should expect if you wake up today, you should be free of your symptoms, clogged sinuses, headache, all that, fever, by the next morning. And usually you're pretty much over those symptoms by bedtime of that first day. So you hit it hard, works very well. And then typically I would recommend that a person continues with those remedies for, let's say, the next couple of days, just to make absolutely sure, because the first day you didn't conquer the virus, you just suppressed the symptoms. You dealt it a blow, but you didn't cure it. Anyway, so andrographis. ECTs is a Chinese herb that actually was once widely used all across Eurasia. This herb, there are many, many herbs that have been used historically in all those big three systems that I talked about, because Eurasia is a continent that has no north-south landscape barriers for plants to cross. Whereas, let's say, North America, you have the Appalachians, then you have the Rocky Mountains, then you have the Coast Range. So it's hard for plants to move east to west in
Mm,
North America. It's hard for them to conquer those barriers. But in
interesting.
Europe, you don't have that. So it was very common that the same plants were used by Hippocrates and the Ayurvedic practitioners who were writing the scriptures 2,000 years ago, and Chinese practitioners. And ECTs is one of those. ECTs is a version of the scientific name. It's a root and also pretty bitter, which you can expect. ECTs is widely used for children. It's thought to be very compatible with children's bodies. Again, because of the bitter taste, it might be a little difficult to get into them in terms of tea. Here we have the scientific name, ECTs tinctoria, which would tell you that probably that has something to do with tinting something or having to do with color. And sure enough, that's true. A very famous blue dye was made out of ECTs, the root.
Mm,
If you look at, let's say, paintings from the Middle Ages in Europe, you notice a lot of people are wearing kind of a clothing that is dyed a deep blue color. That was from ECTs. So it's very famous as a dye, in which case in English it was called woad. but we're going to use the root as an antiviral remedy. When you make it into tea, it does not turn blue. You have to process it to make it turn blue. Chinese name Banlangen, which means blue plank blue root or something like that. So cooling, antimicrobial, cold and flu, sore throats and mumps. And this one is a very forgiving herb with virtually nothing in the way of side effects. So the dose can be anywhere from 10 to 30 grams. Now, these doses that I'm giving you are all doses for the standard adult. So the standard medical adult in all the systems and in modern medicine is 150 pounds or 60 kilos. So you could adjust the dose based on your size. If you're 100 pounds, you would take 2/3 of these doses. If you're 300 pounds, you take twice these doses. So this is the top of the bell curve dose for people that weigh about 150 pounds, 1 to 30 grams. Usually it would be cooked into tea in Chinese medicine. Lisa, we're getting a lot of feedback through your system, so I'm going to mute your microphone. There we go. Okay, thank you. All right. So 10 to 30 grams, and that could be taken in capsule form, powder form, or tea, especially widely used in Chinese medicine for children because it has no disadvantages in terms of side effects for children. It tends to work quite well. When you procure this herb from Chinese sources, it might look like this because Chinese medicine processes everything into tea. Here is a field from France of that same herb growing, and again, we would call it woad, but this was grown for use as a dye. You can also get Isatides in various forms of capsules. This is actually an extract, um, and I have very little experience with Isatides as extracts, but it is available. It should work okay. You see here, these are capsules, and so you could take those. We have another Chinese combination, which should be pretty available from your neighborhood herb store or online, or many of these are now available from Amazon, very easy to get. Chuanxinyan. And this is a combination of a very few very potent herbs. And this is called the Chinese patent medicine. And patent just means that this is a formula that was approved by the Chinese government, usually around 300 years ago, something like that. In order to get approval, they had to publish the recipes. So the recipes are known by the public. You can look them up. And there are many pharmacies that then manufacture the formula. So this happens to be plum flower, which is an excellent quality brand. So this combination is used for cold and flu. In English, we could call this andrographis anti-inflammatory tablets. So 3 herbs, an antibacterial and antiviral medicine. The thing about Chinese patent medicines is that they come as tiny pills. Pills are smaller than a pea. They're maybe a little bigger than a lentil, something like that. They're round, black, shiny pills. And the dose on the bottle of Chinese patent medicines is way too low to be effective. That's the dose that they think won't freak you out. So very commonly, the dose of these Chinese patent medicines, I don't think we actually have a picture of a Chinese patent medicine, but again, about the size of a round spherical lentil or a little bigger, shiny black. And typical dose of those is very often 100 pills a day. Now that sounds like an awful lot, but remember they're quite small. You can very easily swallow 25 of them in a swallow. So it'd be very easy to get these down. We did talk about some Chinese patent medicines in the previous version of this class. So 3 herbs, andrographis, isatis, and dandelion, all of which are cooling and bitter. So dandelion is mainly in there as a liver detoxifier because the liver tends to get congested with cold and flu, a pronounced cooling effect on toxic heat in the body. So especially with fever, cold with fever, bacterial and viral infections. So this is also available as a tea. These 3 herbs are mixed together and packaged as a tea. If you choose to consume it as a tea, that's available. And you could follow the instructions on the label. Typical dose here would be about 30 grams of the combination. Echinacea, an herb that's very well known, I think. A lot of you have heard of it. Very famous as an antiviral. So if we go back to, let's say, 1930, a bunch of German scientists saw that the natural healing system in America was about to go extinct. And they took a bunch of echinacea seeds back to Germany and began growing it, researching it, and experimenting with it. And they're really the ones that came up with the idea of using echinacea primarily for the flu. It was used for numerous other things here. It's an herb that the indigenous people in North America made famous and taught to the white settlers. And those people then made a big deal out of it and really learned how to process it and use it. But the German scientists are the ones that really focused on it for the flu. And they, of course, published all their findings in German. And so nobody here was reading that until we discovered all that work in about maybe 1990 and began going back and reading those studies in translation. And then it became very famous in North America as a treatment for the flu. So an echinacea refers to the flower being spiny. Echino means spiny. So a hedgehog is an echinoderm, for example. Looks kind of like a hedgehog. So it's immune stimulating. Now, some of the other ones we talked about already, like ECTs and andrographis, we don't really know very well how it works, but echinacea has been around long enough and studied extensively, especially by the German scientists, to know that mainly it increases white blood cell production, which is good because that means that your body can fight any kind of infection. I think of echinacea actually as being a better antibacterial than an antiviral, but it does work just fine as an antiviral. It's easily available. Every health food store nutrition section would have echinacea available. So it's active against this very wide variety of microbes. And we could say that it has a cooling temperature with a pungent taste. It's the roots that are used. Historically, the indigenous people use the roots. The eclectics, the super duper high point of North American herbalism was reached about 1890 by a group called the eclectics, and they were very accomplished practitioners, and there were thousands of those doctors. They were alternative medicine doctors, but of course, conventional medicine hadn't developed then the way it has now. So they mainly use the root. Today, there are a lot of echinacea products out there that use the stem, the leaf, the flower, and I'm not convinced that those are really likely to work very well. You can try them. If you find them to work, let me know. I'm not going to argue about it, but I found the root to definitely be the preferred part, and that's been the part that's been preferred ever since people started using echinacea. So historically, the root. Now here we see a particular brand of echinacea capsules, and you can see that they use the root specifically, and that's what I would recommend. Here's another brand that you can see uses the aerial part. In other words, the part that grows above the soil. Echinaceas are large flowers in the daisy family, and an echinacea will grow about as high as your waist. And so there's a lot of plant material above the ground. The root itself, even when the plant gets very old, is only about as big as your little finger or your thumb. So you dig it up. Of course, that plant can't grow anymore because you're going to take the root. And that's all you get is a chunk of root about the size of your thumb. But if you harvest what we would have thought of as the compost in the past and convince people to buy that, then you can sell all that herb. So that's the reason that these aerial part products are even available out there. I would recommend the root anyway. So there are a couple of types of echinacea that are used, a couple of species. We just saw on those bottles that it was Echinacea purpurea, which I'll show you in a second. But this is Echinacea angustifolia. Echinacea comes from Kansas and Nebraska, that area. And this was the one that the eclectics, or that group of outstanding practitioners in the late 1800s, made famous. This is the type that they liked. So the historically preferred species. And then the purpurea was the one that the Germans were using. So they both have a long history of success, and I think either one is likely to work well for you. Generally speaking, with herbs that we're going to use to treat cold and flu, you just start taking a modest amount first thing in the morning. You take a modest dose with food, and then you take a little bit more, let's say every hour throughout the day. And when you get to the place where you're no longer having any symptoms and you can sustain that with the continued dose, you're at the right dose. So a typical dose of echinacea is about 15 grams of the root in capsule form. Any side effects for echinacea? It's remarkably free of side effects. Everything that you swallow has the potential to cause side effects, but echinacea, I can't even think of one. No doubt there are some, but it's not a concern for me. All right, let's take a look at an Ayurvedic preparation called Chyavanprash, probably the most famous Ayurvedic medicine in the world. This is an edible paste or an herbal jelly. It's made from a particular type of fruit amla that is very high in vitamin C and so very antioxidant. 35 other ingredients. So it's widely used for many different things, but in this case, we're going to use it to enhance the immune system and treat acute cold and flu. So Chyavanprash is preventive for cold and flu if you take a daily dose. Typical daily dose would be about 2 tablespoons of this herbal jelly. It has very strong, unusual taste, not necessarily bad, but it'll be just new to you if you haven't tried it before. It's got all the 6 tastes of Ayurveda in appropriate proportions. And so it's a little sweet, a little bitter, a little sour, etc. It's kind of a flavor party in your mouth. So some people like it, some people don't, but a couple tablespoons a day would be a good preventive thing to start now to prevent cold and flu. But for an acute cold, the typical dose might be something like up to about 6 tablespoons per day, and it's often taken with warm milk. There are some mildly warming spices in the Chyavanprash, and that milk will cool it down a little bit. But that's a typical dose for if you wake up and you're feeling fluish this morning, you hit it hard, you might take your 6 tablespoons by, let's say, lunchtime, and it will knock it right out. So that amla fruit that the Chyavanprash is made of, it looks like this. They look like they could taste good, but they don't. They're horrible. So they're very bitter, very sour, and it's made into medicine in Ayurveda. It's a fruit in the botanical sense, not in the sense of something that you eat for dessert. So Chyavanprash is going to come like this. It looks like a brown paste. Ayurveda has a whole bunch of these herbal pastes. There are many dozens of them. It's quite a popular way to get medicine in. And generally speaking, they tend to be tonifying or building. In this case, Chyavanprash is the most famous building remedy for everybody for everything. It just treats every organ, gland, and function in the body, but it's slow to act. So Ayurveda recommends that pretty much everybody just take a couple tablespoons of this every single day. So it enhances stamina, intimacy functions, and then we talked about immune issues. So many various different brands. This is an especially high-end Chyavanprash from organic India. If you like the taste, you can put it on crackers, things like that to get it in. Another Ayurvedic remedy for the flu, Sitopaladi. Sitopala means something that's white and crystalline. So like quartz crystals could be called Sitopaladi. Salt is a white crystal shaped kind of thing. But in this particular case, it refers to white sugar. So that's a little strange to have white sugar as a medicine, but the reason we have it in there is because it thins mucus. So this is a cough suppressant remedy. D on the end means that it's a formula. So it's the sugar, etc. formula. It comes as a powder. It's available on Amazon and many other different places. So rock sugar is in there because it thins mucus. The long pepper, cardamom, and cinnamon are all delicious, mildly warming spices. It tastes a little bit like cinnamon toast. It's quite tasty, actually. And the bamboo manna is dried sap from the inside of a bamboo plant, and that shuts off the cough. So this is a very famous anti-cough medicine. That's the purpose of this, is to stop coughing just when you're so miserable you just can't stand it, and you can use this. So the sugar, etc. formula, named after white sugar in this case. So for serious unproductive cough, and then you could use it as maintenance for a little while after you're sick to eliminate excess congestion from the head and chest. So it thins out the mucus. Those warming spices are all mucolytic or thin mucus as well to allow it to be expectorated. So what typically happens is you take a bunch of Sitopaladi and you have a couple great big expectorations, and then you stop coughing and you get relief from that cough. Very effective. So lungs and sinuses, healthy expectoration, burns excess mucus. I called it the cough syrup of Ayurveda. It's not actually a syrup, but what happens is that you take it as a powder and it melts in your mouth. So especially cough with copious white or yellow mucus, sore throat, high fever, those are all the indications. 2 heaping tablespoons as 1 dose. So you get all that in your mouth. As it begins to mix with your saliva, it becomes a viscous, syrupy-like consistency, and then goes down your throat to coat your throat, and that provokes the expectoration and then stops the cough. Ginseng is an interesting idea for treating cold and flu. This is not one of the traditional uses for it, but the Canadian government has been doing a whole bunch of research on ginseng for many things. They're trying to develop a ginseng industry in Canada. British Columbia has an ideal climate for growing ginseng, and there are a bunch of large ginseng farms there now, most of which get sold to Asia because people in North America still can't figure out how to use it. But the Canadian scientists figured out that ginseng is an excellent anti-flu remedy and started studying that and promoting that. So a little bit of detail here, the scientific name, Panax ginseng. And that ginseng is the Europeanization of the Chinese name, which is renshen, that means man root, because the roots have kind of look like they have legs and arms. So it comes from China, or in this case, it might be grown in North America. Ginseng generally is used as a long-term maintenance herb. It's a tonic remedy, a building remedy. You take a couple grams a day. Normally it's taken by men only in Asia, although women sometimes use it here. Typically you take a couple grams starting at about age 30. It's a pretty substantial libido enhancer. So most of the time men don't need libido enhancement before they're about 35. So a couple grams forever. But it turns out that it supports immune function, which is going to be good to prevent colds, which we've known for a long time. But a high initial dose will treat the symptoms of a cold. So you want to take a dose that is not overly stimulating. And so you'd work your way into it during the day and increase over several days. So if you haven't taken ginseng for the flu before, you might take, let's say, a gram with breakfast, another gram with mid-morning, another gram at lunch, something like that. If you take less than, let's say, 10 grams, you're probably not going to feel overly stimulated from it. So ginseng is available in a few forms. When it's steamed in a very particular way, it turns this kind of tan color, and that's called red ginseng, which is a little bit more energizing. And then we have white ginseng, which is not steamed. So 5 grams a day would be a good long-term maintenance remedy for either men or women, again, more typically for men. Take that forever for the rest of your life. But the dose to treat acute cold and flu could be more like 10 or 12 grams, taken as soon as you get up and feel that flu-like feeling. So it's easily available in many different forms, including here we see capsules, 1 to 2 grams a day. I said 5 in a previous slide, so anywhere in that neighborhood would be good. It takes a while for the ginseng to really kick in and enhance stamina, sexual functioning, immune functioning. So it's good to take a while to get used to what it's doing. Take a couple grams for, a month or so, and then bump that up to 3 grams for another month, and just experiment with the dose that gives you the best stamina, mental function, and then also to prevent cold and flu. In Asia, ginseng is used much more casually. So grandmas use cook ginseng into food. So you can make ginseng soup, and the whole family will have some. And used casually like that, it's perfectly fine as family type medicine. So here we are with some of this new research in terms of ginseng for cold and flu. It's the best-selling cold and flu remedy in Canada. I don't think that's quite really made its way all the way down into the States yet, but this is using North American ginseng that's grown in North America, came originally from the Appalachians, but now it's grown in places like Wisconsin, and I mentioned British Columbia. So it shortens the duration of colds or acute respiratory infection in healthy adults when taken preventively for 8 to 16 weeks. So now would be the time to start taking a modest dose of ginseng to prevent cold and flu. On some of these slides, I've given you the reference for where you can go read the study if you're interested. So this is just more information about the same situation and how to use it. Uh, Again, some studies and good just general information about ginseng here if you're interested in experimenting. So that's a whole new take on ginseng. It's not thought of as a cold remedy in China, but now, the best-selling flu remedy in Canada. That's pretty impressive. All right, so on to cubeb berry. This is a relative of black pepper. It's a peppercorn. There are about 100 peppercorns that are used as food and medicine around the world. This is one of them. It comes originally from Indonesia, but it's traveled to some other places, Piper cubeba. So this is one that has some kind of minor uses in Ayurveda and Chinese medicine and Western herbalism. So people in the West found out about cubeb and traded for it all the way from Indonesia and used it for a number of things. But here we're talking about it for cold and flu. So cough and fever, 2,000-year-old Indian scriptures talked about using it for that. It's a hot remedy like black pepper. So I really like cubeb for treating cold and flu. About 10 grams a day in, let's say, capsule form would be the way to go. It tastes a lot like black pepper. It's a little bit different. It's good tasting. It is pungent. So tea is not the best way to take it just because it's so pungent. But you could stir some powder into a bite of mushy food like mashed potatoes or applesauce or something and swallow it that way. So it is suitable as a culinary herb. It's as tasty as black tea, and it is available. Again, probably Amazon, you could find it. So here, Frontier Herb, you see, is offering it in a pepper grinder. I usually like Guducci in capsule form, not Guducci, cubeb in capsule form. And that should be relatively available if you chop around a little bit, about 10 grams a day. So if you wake up with cold and flu symptoms, start taking it with breakfast and keep taking a gram here, a gram there until your flu symptoms are gone. Then maintain that dose through the rest of the day and then take that dose for another couple days. Very good. It's a one-stop shopping center for cold and flu. All right, so here's Guducci, one of my favorite herbs. This is an excellent cold and flu remedy. It's a climbing vine, and people in India often grow Guducci in their garden so that when someone in the family has the flu, they can go out and grab a hunk of the vine, bring it in, cook it up as tea, and they can drink it immediately. So it will work as tea. It's a tropical plant. It's not going to grow in Portland, but it's easily available in chopped form. Amazon actually even carries some chopped Guducci vine. So it's the vine itself that we use, the stem. Here we have the scientific name. So it does many, many things. One of the first Ayurvedic herbs I ever learned about 50 years ago, and I use it on a regular basis today. So it's a famous brain herb. It's hormonal balance. It enhances sexual functioning. You can see all the things that it does for you. It's a very good immune maintenance herb. So a couple of grams a day taken forever for the immune system is great. Otherwise, a higher dose if you actually have symptoms. So here's a list of the main things that it does. So in acute flu, about 15 grams. You could make a tea of 15 grams of the chopped vine, or you could take it in capsule or powder form. Maintenance dose about 2 grams, as I was saying. All right, so again, so many things that it does. This is a fresh Guducci stem, just harvested, and that will be cut into smaller pieces and then dried. And then from there, either ground to powder or chopped into smaller pieces for tea, something like that. This is, we're at a farm in North India that grows Guducci, and they're drying their crop on the roof of the house. So that's very common. It's these herbs are, herbal medicine is used by the majority of the world, and they use pretty substantial doses. And so herbs are commercial crops in the places where people use them. So it's not uncommon for farmers to grow these things. We saw an Andrographis farm earlier. This is a Guducci farm. So Guducci is a very famous brain and emotional balance herb. So this is a little bit of just explanation about that whole situation, but it helps people with anger issues and with depression. The Bhagavad Gita says that if the the mental fire is burning brightly, you can become spiritually free and you'll be untouched by negativity as a lotus leaf by water. So it helps the mind and the heart. Very powerful detoxifier. So excellent for brain health. My specialty is neurology. And so I deal with migraines and facial pain, epilepsy, autism, neurological sort of things like that. So I'm very often using Guducci mainly as a brain healer. But we did talk about cold and flu. And again, anything from just grabbing a hunk of the vine off of out of your garden and cooking it up to getting it from a commercial source will work. It's easily available as powder, more easily available as powder, and you could make tea out of the powder. It's a little bit kind of makes more like mud, but if you let it settle a little bit or filter it through like a coffee filter, you can make a pretty decent tea with the powder. Or you can shop around a little bit for the chopped material, and that makes just more convenient as a tea. Here is Guducci in pill form. It's available from many different sources. So here is the chopped material. All right. So we will have question and answer session here in a little bit, but let me tell you a little bit about PCC's professional herbal training program. Herbalism today is kind of a strange situation. There's lots of products, but everybody is frustrated by trying to figure out how to use these products. You go to a health food store and it's just mind-blowing the number of different possibilities. And then you're supposed to talk to somebody there, often who knows as much as you do or less than you do. So a lot of products, but not very much professionalism. About 98% of herbs that are consumed in North America are bought from people in a retail setting. So you or someone like you walks into the health food store and is trying to figure out what to do for your cold and flu. And of course, the object of the health food store is to sell you something. And those are kind of conflicting motivations. So you want something that works, and they want something that gives them profit. We've seen that ashwagandha last year was declared the herb of the year in the health food world. And I saw just this last week two different morning news sessions on ashwagandha, and they were kind of sensationalist. Ashwagandha does all kinds of stuff. And frankly, ashwagandha is a relatively mild herb. We don't use ashwagandha for cold and flu, but I'm just using it as an example. The doses that were being recommended were so tiny that it was never going to do anything. So all the people who they were interviewing on these news shows who were talking about all the great things it did for them were just fantasizing. That's not to say that they might have felt something, but ashwagandha has been used for 5,000 years, and we know the kinds of doses that really work. And it's not, someone was talking about 100 milligram dose, and that's too small to do anything. So there's just a lot of misinformation out there, and it's getting more and more of a problem. So herb therapy is different than drug therapy because we're not using isolated substances. We could call it non-toxic pharmacology, but if we're using a whole herb, any given herb might have 10,000 different constituents, literally 10,000 different chemicals in that herb that you're going to consume. And that's true of your food. I mean, a carrot or a beet, 10,000 chemicals. And so they work in concert with each other. Probably 100 of those are active, and of those, maybe 10 are the main active ones. But still, they work together rather than blowing out one particular metabolic channel like like drugs do. Drugs are one chemical. Herbs contain 10,000 chemicals. So drugs overwhelm one particular biochemical pathway, and of course are known to cause side effects. Whereas herbs are shunted through multiple metabolic pathways, and they don't overwhelm any given one. So herbs are definitely not drugs. there's a tendency to think of herbs as drug delivery systems. What's the active ingredient? Well, let's figure that out and extract it and then either make it into a drug or use it like a drug. That's not what that's not the forte of herbs. The forte is to use the whole herb and have a broad variety of the active constituents working in slightly different mechanisms, slightly different speeds, being metabolized and eliminated slightly differently, much more forgiving on the body. So drugs, one isolated chemical that overwhelms the pathway and causes side effects. Herbs, thousands of chemicals with a broad action, and we know they work very, very well. Not only do we have the experience of our ancestors for the last 5,000 years in all those big three systems, we have the information from modern science for the last 100 years. There's been a tremendous amount of excellent research on herbal medicine, even just in the past 10 years, but many people are not familiar with it. And so you have people pontificating about herbs, in their blogs, when frankly, it's unlikely that they really know very much. It's hard to separate the good information from the nonsense. So with herbs, of course, the active constituents are natural and so more likely to be metabolized by your body in a non-toxic way. And most herbs are not just drug delivery systems for the reason I mentioned. So what we really need to know is the right herb for the condition, but then also the right herb for the individual, the proper quality, the proper preparation. Does that particular herb do better as a tea or a tincture or pills? The right potency and dose. So to get all these things lined up is not easy. Most people in other parts of the world grew up in a situation where all the people in their household, all their aunties and uncles and grandparents and siblings and neighbors and everybody in their village was taking herbal medicine. I was in Germany recently, and I was having a dinner with, it was at a natural health function. So everybody that was there was a proponent of natural healing, and people from all sorts of countries all over the world eating dinner together. The guy I was sitting next to was from Switzerland, and he said, "We just don't understand you Americans. How can you get by without taking natural medicine every single day?" He said, "I don't know a single person in my town that doesn't take natural medicine." And it's very true. So people who grew up with these things know ways to use a few things, maybe a dozen herbs, and they can use each of those herbs in 10 different ways. And that handles 95% or 90% of the health issues that people come across. Their headaches, their constipation, their muscle pain, their insomnia, all of that. Then professionals are consulted for that remaining, let's say 2% that individuals can't handle and grandma can't handle. So we can focus on herbal medicine by the body system that it treats, such as the respiratory system or the immune system. We want to find the right herb for the individual. Here's a Chinese saying: same disease, different treatments, different diseases, same treatment. In other words, we treat the person, not the disease. So I've given you a number of herbs here tonight, but if you see a professional, they will help you choose between the dozen or so herbs that I've mentioned tonight. Echinacea is not going to be the best for everybody. Isatides is not going to be the best for everybody. You can try it. If it works, great. Otherwise, you then have to try it for someone else. If you see a professional, they'll help lead you to the one that's really going to work. The quality, of course, that's a serious problem because there's a lot of mediocre, if not just junk, in the marketplace. It's not unsafe or unclean. It's just it hasn't been harvested or cultivated with care, and the quality suffered. That's why we have professional health career training at PCC. So this is aimed at people that are looking to develop their career. So we have a bunch of people always in these courses that are established professionals, dentists, medical doctors, massage therapists, people with a credential of some kind, and they're feeling their own limitations and they want to add herbal training to that. Also, we have people that are starting a career. So you get in on the ground floor, learn the things that you need to learn. Herbalism is not a licensed profession in any of the 50 states. Medical practice is dealt with on a state-by-state basis in the United States, and no state has formalized herbal medicine as a profession. That doesn't mean that it's illegal. It just means that it's not specifically validated as being legal. So it's just not mentioned in the law, which means that as a private citizen, you can do anything you want that you can get another private citizen to agree to, as long as it's not illegal, which herbal medicine is not. So people that want to start a career, it's a great for self-starters. And we've had many people that go through this program go on to have successful careers as herbalists. People often take this course to learn about their personal health. I would say it's about 50-50. About half the people are looking to either enhance their professional credentials or to start from scratch with a career in herbalism, and the other half are looking to answer their personal health questions or to treat their family. So family health is very important to many people. I will be your instructor. The course is all online, and it's based on the American Herbalist Guild standards. There's a credential that the American Herbalist Guild grants called Registered Herbalist, and that takes a little bit more time than the 1-year course that PCC offers. So you have to go on and do a little bit more there. But once you've done that, the material from the PCC class helps you develop some of the criteria that you need to go on and develop this credential. This is the credential that I hold, registered herbalist. It's the only career for professional herbalists in the United States. So our class is one evening a week for 3 hours. It's Wednesday night. And I believe that's what all I have to say about all these things. I see there's a bunch of questions that came in. We'll deal with these in a moment, but I think Amy would like to talk to you about some other details here. So take it away, Amy.
Thank you so much, KP. Really appreciated learning some more about herbs and sharing all that you did with us. Um, Yes, so thank you also for kind of the introduction to the herbal medicine program at PCC. As with all of our programs, our instructor is highly credentialized and has specialization with all of the experience that you've already heard. So you would be learning from the best. I wanted to just kind of give a little bit more overview of studying with KP through our program and just be sure we get any questions answered about that. The program is open to a variety of students and professionals. There are no prerequisites to take the program. And should you choose to join us in this journey, you will find yourself in a class with people that are passionate about learning herbs. Some will already be existing healthcare providers and are looking to be able to support their patients and clients with herbal knowledge, and others are choosing to start their health studies with us. Some people in the program know that herbs are what they're wanting to devote their next phase of their career to entirely, and they are wanting to move forward through everything that's required to become certified with the American Herbalist Guild, while others are perhaps massage therapists or naturopaths, and just adding this a little bit to that. And still, some of the other students are just really looking to be able to obtain this knowledge to support themselves and their loved ones, friends, and family, not necessarily seeking to create a practice where they're going to be working a lot with clients and things. So a whole great group of people that come to this, everyone eager to learn, asking lots of wonderful and insightful questions. Um, as I mentioned at the beginning, being part of the larger college, being a program within the larger college, you get access to all of the services at Portland Community College. This means that you have access to the career support planning services, you have access to disability services should you need those, and you have access to our full library, which includes a lot of online resources as well as interlibrary loan options. So many people love access to journal articles and so many things that they don't have when they're not a part of a college learning environment there. As we covered, this program supports planning towards national certification. It is delivered, as KP mentioned, for about 3 hours, twice on Wednesdays, once in the afternoon Pacific time and another in the evening. We'll get into that a little bit more. in a couple of slides here. But during the program, you get all of the live instruction, the wealth of knowledge that KP has to share, and the mentoring that he can offer. He also provides Q&A, not just during the session, but through office hours before or after the sessions. So as you're studying this, or maybe working with a study group, as things evolve and you end up having some deeper dive questions, you will have opportunities every week to be able to work with KP in developing those questions and getting them answered. All of the live sessions are recorded, so you will have full access to the library of recordings throughout the entire term. And if you want to go back and revisit some of what was shared, or if you needed to miss a session, know that they will be available for you 24/7 on our platform there. KP also shares a lot of wonderful optional resources with you, and things that you're not required to study as part of preparing for the class, but that many people treasure having access to and being able to explore on their own time, either during the class or afterwards. We also provide various payment plans to help make the program more accessible to folks, and those are interest free. Oh, think we've already covered a lot of why to study herbs and herbalism, but KP, if you could switch to the next slide. As we mentioned, as KP referenced, this is a really growing field. There's increasing demand for this every day. There's misinformation out there, and so getting the opportunity to really learn these systems and this natural healing support can be beneficial to you now and later, as well as we mentioned, loved ones and potential clients. There are a wide variety of roles that you can enter. I think KP referenced some of the hats he's worn working with tea companies. We have students that end up getting involved in all kinds of things, so we'll touch into that in a minute. It is portable. You can take this knowledge with you anywhere you go. So it's a wonderful wonderful skill to acquire and to be able to share. We do have folks from every background. As I mentioned at the beginning, we have international participants, people across the country that are wanting to work with different communities, or they're passionate about different areas within healthcare or within herbal medicine. So you get to apply and explore this in the ways that are most aligned for you. There's certainly higher earning potential relative to the cost of the program, and being able to get your certificate and then immediately be able to practice and support others with this. And we do anticipate at some point that there will be some state level credentialing in different states across the country. So we really love being a part of getting people certified and having the base knowledge to be grandfathered in should those regulations and boards start to evolve sooner than later. You'll be ready to go and already deemed one of the experts in the area. So is herbalism right for you? Just let you read a little bit here. See, these are some of the qualities and characteristics that we find to be common for many of the people interested in this field. And of course, there's also the people that love growing the herbs, working with their hands, creating the tinctures, and teaching other people about them. I mean, these are just some of the basic qualities and characteristics, but there are many, many more that I'm sure many of you possess in being able to share your herbal knowledge with others, and identifying this as one of your preferred areas of study. Specific to our program, you already have met KP and know all the expertise that he brings. Throughout this program, you will touch into the three main systems of Ayurveda, Chinese, and Western systems and medicine. Collectively, throughout the course of the 9 month program or the 1 year, kind of synonymous in our college terms there for the sake of this program, you will cover over 200 different herbs, touching into those systems and being able to discern which are at what time would one herb be a little bit more appropriate than the other, and when you want to lean into certain systems more than others. And of course, all of this prepares you for the American Herbalist certification for those that are desiring that. We find that about 25% of our students are seeking that level of certification, and about 70 to 75 are really content. They've acquired all the knowledge that they were really seeking in the year one program, while others do decide to go on and seek that additional knowledge and work towards the national certification. For our specific program, it is delivered over 3 terms. So that is 9 months in college lingo there, the equivalent of 9 months. The terms are the fall, winter, and spring terms. The same content is taught every fall, same content every winter, and then same content every spring. So we've designed this to allow people to enter at any time. If you need to pause the program, you can do so and know that you can come back the following year and pick up where you may have needed to pause. We know that life happens, jobs change, people need to move, you know, pregnancies. There's all kinds of things where sometimes somebody starts the program and then they realize, oh, I need to hit the pause button. I'm excited to come back and finish this. So we've built that in through having more of it be a module-based approach to learning. But you can start anytime, and throughout the year you will get all of those 200 herbs and all of the different systems that we will be covering. KP, as I mentioned, will provide some optional resources. He also posts all of his PowerPoint presentations. So you have all of these resources and many more that he will provide that you can download to be able to start your own library of information there. The recordings are not downloadable, but all of the written content is, so that you have that to utilize moving forward. It is delivered synchronously twice on Wednesdays, as I mentioned. And then you can move on for people that do want to continue studying with KP and getting that second year of more in-depth knowledge. You can continue on seamlessly with that same format, fall, winter, springs, and the same price point. Tuition is $9.99 per term, or effectively per class, and then you complete all 3 classes to earn your year 1 certificate. These are several of the, did we skip a slide there? I think we might have, oh, maybe not, sorry. Okay, so this is kind of an overview of some of the high level things that are covered in each of the terms, just to give you an idea of a little bit of what we will be touching into. Let you read that for a moment. As you can see throughout the year, we really touch into all of the different body systems, and then within each system, again, you're learning the different herbal medicine systems, the Chinese, Ayurveda, and Western. And if we move to the next slide, you can see what is more specifically included within each system. Those 10 body systems, the different herbal philosophies and approaches, chemistry, preparations, formulating, all kinds of great things. We also encourage people to join a study group. We've found that many students find that learning with others and really exploring the content together enriches it and helps them develop a deeper level of questioning and integration. It's completely optional. For adult learners, we know that you're balancing a lot in life, and depending what your interest and commitment is, that may or may not be the best path for you. But we have set up some kind of study guides and key questions and things to support anyone who does want to create or be part of a study group there. As students at PCC, you will have access to a Zoom account, so you can set up Zoom meetings with your study groups if you would like, or you can use any of the many other options for meeting, Google Meets or anything that you may have personally to be able to offer for the study group purposes. A little bit of the nitty gritty here, the investment. Our terms typically are 10 to 11 weeks, generally 11 weeks in the fall and 10 weeks for the winter and the spring. And this program is delivered twice on Wednesdays. I'm sorry, that says evenings. And it is twice a week there. It is synchronous and then the asynchronous recordings are available. And we do support or suggest that you plan some prep time and study using that standard formula for college of 1 to 3 hours of prep time for every hour of instruction. So we do suggest setting aside 1 to 8 or 9 hours a week to study. KP will give you a full book list and he will have the readings assigned out up front so that you can study and dive into a lot of those. Most people find it on the lighter to medium side of the preparation, but I do still encourage people, if you may want to go down some of the optional explorations or take advantage of the library access and find a lot of other things. So that will be up to you if you want to save a little bit of that additional time there. And then for the tuition, the program is $9.99 per term, as we mentioned. The books, you get to purchase those from wherever you would like. So you can buy them used, you can buy them new. They range maybe 60 to 150 for the full set of books there. And you can purchase we will send you the book list that is showing which books are used in each term. So you will see that several of the books are used throughout the entire year. A few are just for 1 or 2 terms there. So you'll have all of that information up front so you can pick and choose which ones you want to perhaps buy all at once or spread them out over time. And then the college does offer typically a 3-payment plan option. Occasionally they offer a 5-payment plan as well. But the payment plans are published online and you can sign up for those through your account or by calling the student services and having them help get you registered in that. We also are glad to accept scholarships, education awards. People sometimes have employer supported ongoing training and tuition support there. So we're glad to take any of the support and financial assistance that you're able to acquire, with the exception of FAFSA. Being a non-credit professional development program, our programs are not eligible for federal financial aid. Those are preserved for degree-seeking programs, not professional development programs. So with that, I think we're going to look at the next steps. It's pretty simple. We invite you to register. The program starts January 10th, and which is a Wednesday, of course. And the best way, if you have not ever taken a class at PCC before, the first thing you'll need to do is enroll as a PCC student. This can take a couple of days once you've submitted your application for you to receive your student ID number. Once you have that, you can enroll either online through your MyPCC account using that course registration number that you see there, 11876. The other option is you can call. I'll put the phone number and I will also put the enrollment link in the chat in a little bit here. So you can call and register over the phone once you have your PCC ID. I do want to emphasize that the college will be closing for the winter break on December 22nd. So we really strongly encourage you to register by December 15th so that you can have the best support possible. Occasionally there's hiccups. The welcome letter and the book list, all of those are manual processes. So I will be emailing those to you, but we really want to give you enough time to get enrolled, get your payment plan set up, and get your book list so that you can be ordering everything and get those books through all that holiday mail and everything else that is also competing for shipping time and purposes. So really, really encourage you to get registered before the holidays. So shooting for December 15th. Worst case scenario, we can still get you in on January 3rd by registering up to then, but you will be one of many people trying to cram in. So I love to help make things easy for everyone and build in a little cushion there. And with that, we'd love to open it up for questions. We do have several questions about the herbs specifically. Before we dive into that, I am going to just clarify. We had a question about how many weeks per term. I will put the PCC academic calendar in the chat here, and you can have the specific term dates. You'll see if there's any holidays in there and things like that that may be of interest to you. But for the winter term, you can plan on 10 weeks and then a final exam week as well. And the material is not available as a lifetime access. You can, all of that you download, you have for life, but the recordings are only stored for 120 days. So we commit to making those available to you throughout the term, and then and I'm happy to extend that for a couple of weeks after the term, so you have access if you want to revisit anything. Being a community college, we do not have any scholarships for our non-credit programs available, but we have had students find scholarships on their own and be able to apply those to the program. So KP, I'll let you answer a few questions as well, and we can get back to some of the others.
Yeah, sure. I think I can see the those that put the question in the chat, and you can let me know if there's any others from any other place here. So Siberian ginseng also good for cold and flu. Siberian ginseng is not a type of ginseng. That's a nickname for a plant that's a cousin of ginseng, a distant cousin, but that it's actually illegal to label that as Siberian ginseng, at least in the United States now. It needs to be called Eleuthero, which is a better name so it's not confused. So it's not ginseng that grows in Siberia, it's a different plant. And does not have the reputation for treating cold and flu like the Panax ginseng does. It is a very good sort of broad spectrum building tonic, and so it supports immune function over time. So it does have that benefit, but we don't have the science on it for cold and flu. Guduchi for anxiety and depression. Yeah, sure. Although that's not sort of its main claim to fame. There might be other herbs that are better for that, but one could try that for Guduchi, that's for sure. Is the ginseng grown in Canada Panax ginseng? I think it's Panax quinquefolius. I'm not sure what every single farm is doing. And the information out of Canada is a little bit ambiguous about exactly what they're doing. So Panax quinquefolius is the ginseng that grows in North America, and Panax ginseng is the ginseng that grows in Asia. Tinctures of the roots of Chinese herb you mentioned. Well, it would be possible to make tinctures of those remedies. The problem is they've never been made in human history, so no one knows how they should be made properly. So the important things about tinctures, or the typical most important things, are the extraction ratio, which is typically 1:5, although it could be 1:2 or 1:4 or other ratios, and then the alcohol percentage. So if a tincture has never been made before, we don't know how to make it. And so that requires the involvement of an army of practitioners to try these things out and find out what they're working, how they're working. So tinctures are used in Western herbalism. Tinctures came out of Europe, and no other system has a history of making tinctures. So we don't know. Now, that doesn't stop companies from making those tinctures. So you will find tinctures of just about every herb that that we talked about out there in the marketplace. I mentioned ashwagandha, which is not a cold and flu herb, but just for comparison, you will find ashwagandha tincture there all over the place out there, but no one actually really knows how to make it. So whoever's selling it is just making a guess in terms of how to make it. And does it work? If it works, I'm all for it. But there's no way to know that it works because we have no experience with it. So we're still trying to figure that out. And typically that's going to take a generation or so to really figure out. So I'm skeptical of using Chinese and Ayurvedic herbs in tincture form. Again, there's a lot of fantasy out there in the herb world about what people think their herbs are doing, and often it's based on very little actual common sense. Uh, okay, which of the herbs would you not use in a client with autoimmune disease? Laura is asking. So here, Laura is saying that echinacea is immune stimulating. I'm not quite sure that I agree with that. Well, it is definitely immune stimulating in a sense because we know it increases white blood cell production, which is good. But is it inappropriate to use with autoimmune diseases? That's a debatable point. There are some folks that think it is, some that think it isn't. Um, I tend to be on the side of thinking that it would be okay to use echinacea in autoimmune diseases. So it's not an easy answer. In general, the whole concept of various herbs being so-called immune stimulating and causing problems with autoimmune disease is not really very well worked out and still pretty debatable. So I'm not sure that I would agree with that or be able to even name herbs that would be problematic there. Does this teach Western herbalism? Yeah, we are material. I'm not quite sure. Maybe I gave you the idea somehow that only TCM and Ayurveda were included, but um, the three systems are each given approximately equal time and attention, probably slightly more on the Western herbalism side, but it's about 1/3 of each of those systems. How many weeks is the course? 11 weeks per module. What's the rice dosage for ashwagandha? Um, you can use ashwagandha in doses up to about 60 grams, although 60 grams, I would say that I've used maybe twice in my entire career, but 30-gram doses I've used extensively. Ashwagandha is a slow acting herb. So in order to get much action out of it in terms of enhancing sexual function or treating anxiety or increasing stamina, it's going to be a slow go unless you use a higher dose. So if people can tolerate a higher dose, and by tolerating, I just mean they're willing to actually swallow it, doesn't have side effects or anything, but you just have to stir it into some mushy food and swallow it or something. A maintenance dose of ashwagandha is only a couple of grams, but if you start with a couple of grams, it's going to be a couple of years before you get up to peak efficiency on the ashwagandha. Andrographis you recommend in the tincture form? Well, again, that you're assuming that the tincture form is going to work. I don't know whether the tincture form of andrographis works or not. Maybe you've had experience with it and you like it and it doesn't work. It does work, but that's an herb that comes from, it's mainly used in Ayurveda, and Ayurveda doesn't have tinctures. And so I don't know the answer to that question. Family members with colitis and liver cancer. And then you say, can this help them? I'm not sure what the this is that you're referring to. We don't cover cancer in year one of the herb course whatsoever. Colitis, we do talk about. Require writing papers? No. The only requirement for the course is a final at the end of the quarter. Lifetime access? No. Most of the things that you would want to get from the course to store are downloadable. So all of the PowerPoint slides as PDFs, all of the supplemental reading material, it's all downloadable. And so you will have it for yourself forever there. But otherwise, the course material closes at the end of the quarter. How many weeks per term? 11. Are there scholarships available? Not from PCC, but if you find a scholarship that you want to use, PCC has accepted all kinds of work rehab money and sort of things like that. Easy to get a job as an herbalist. That's it depends. So I've done nothing but this as my career. I started as an older teenager and I've never had any other kind of a job. So my private practice and then teaching and writing, and I've done a lot of things in this world. I do consulting for companies and a wide variety of things. But originally I just started out with a practice, and I've been able to, I own my house completely. I've been able to put my kids through school, all of that uh, through this practice, but it does require self-starters. You're not going to have the red carpet rolled out for you. It's something that we do see people getting employed as an herbalist here and there. We just had someone from this term, actually fall term of this year, get a job as an herbalist at an herb store in Portland. She went in to talk to them about something, said she was in this course, and they said, "Do you want a job?" So she's now working in an herb store as well as being in an herb course. Amy, can you answer the question about is there access to the previous cold and flu herbs uh, webinar?
We are working to get all of those put on YouTube, so there would be. At one point, we did send that out, and we had that on Facebook. So uh, stay tuned, or you can search YouTube probably in the next month or so. Those should all be up.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Registered herbalist, you need at least 400 clinical hours, 800 hours of classroom experience. So we will need to take many classes. 3 terms won't be enough to be certified. Yes, 3 terms isn't enough to be certified. So if you take year 1 with PCC and year 2 with my school, that should do. And plus, we offer a clinical class, a clinical internship that gives you what you need there. So we've had many people um, qualify as a registered herbalist with that background. 2 terms of academic instruction with me as the instructor and the clinical internship. So the American Herbalist Guild uh, does not have specific requirements for training because people come from a wide variety of backgrounds, and maybe they interned with a family member or just so many different ways of getting educated, that these are all suggestions. They're not black and white requirements. And so what I can tell you is that the uh, number of hours that we put into the first year, plus the self-study hours that you put in, and then the same thing for the second year, is adequate. So far, it's been adequate for all the people that have applied, and then the clinical internship as well, uh, which that's a 6-month process. Got your PCC student account, phone number. You're very welcome. Would you do a session for pre-diabetes or diabetes or arthritis? Yeah, sure. I mean, we do these 3 times a year. So it's a matter of figuring out. I don't remember exactly. We've done a number of these, and I can't say the specifics of each one that we've done, but um, we will continue to do various different topics. So those are good suggestions. Thank you, DK. It looks like that covers everything. Um, is there any other secret place for questions, Amy?
No, I think we've got all of them answered so far. So, and I know that we are over a little bit. I'm seeing a couple more coming in. So we're getting some thank yous. So thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate all of your help. You've got my information on there. I'm happy to answer additional questions if you want to email me. And if you have other questions for KP regarding some of the content and all of that he knows, we hope that you'll join us in class. I will be sending out an email with a link to the recording for this, and then also the information for registering for the winter term. Uh, Thank you again for being with us this evening, and wish you all the best.